The scream cut through the marble hallway like a knife. Officer James Mitchell had been guarding the east wing of Kensington Palace for 3 years. He'd heard children cry before, tantrums over bedtime, tears after scraped knees. But this sound was different. This was raw terror mixed with pain. His stomach is tearing apart. The voice belonged to Princess Charlotte. She was only 9 years old. James's heart slammed against his ribs. His hand moved instinctively to his radio, but his feet were already running. Protocol demanded he alert the security team first. Protocol demanded he wait for medical staff. But Protocol hadn't heard that scream. His boots thundered against the polished floor. Paintings of ancestors blurred past him, the palace usually. Filled with quiet dignity, now felt like a maze keeping him from a child in agony. He rounded the corner to the private quarters. The door stood half open. Inside, he could hear sobbing. Desperate, breathless sobbing. Before we continue with what James found in that room, if you're drawn into stories that reveal the hidden human, moments behind famous walls, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next changed everything. James pushed the door open carefully. His training told him to assess the scene. Look for threats. Look for danger. But all he saw was a little girl curled on the carpet, clutching her stomach, her face twisted in agony. Charlotte's nanny, Mrs. Whitmore, knelt beside her, hands shaking as she tried to comfort the princess. The older woman's face had gone pale. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "It came on so suddenly," Mrs. Whitmore said, looking up at James with terrified eyes. "We were reading, and she just doubled over. I've called for medical, but how long?" James dropped to one knee beside them, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system. 2 minutes. Maybe 3. Charlotte's eyes found his. They were wide with fear and wet with tears. Her small hand reached out and gripped his sleeve with surprising strength. "It hurts," she whispered. "Something's wrong. Something's really wrong." James had seen soldiers wounded in combat. He'd seen adults hide pain behind gritted teeth. But children couldn't mask it. Their fear was honest, raw, and right now. Charlotte's fear was telling him this wasn't a simple stomachache. Her skin had taken on a grayish tint. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool air, and her breathing came in short, shallow gasps. "Where exactly does it hurt?" James kept his voice calm, gentle. He'd learned that calm was contagious. Panic was too. Charlotte's hand moved to her lower right side. Here, like something's breaking inside. James's blood ran cold. Lower right abdomen. Sudden onset. Severe pain. His brother was a surgeon. He'd heard enough dinner table conversations to recognize the pattern. This could be appendicitis. And if her appendix ruptured, he pressed his radio. "This is Officer Mitchell, East Wing. Medical emergency. Princess Charlotte, severe abdominal pain, possible appendicitis. We need emergency medical now. Now." The radio crackled. "Copy that. Dr. Stevens is en route." To 4 minutes. 4 minutes. It felt like a lifetime. Charlotte's grip on his sleeve tightened. Another wave of pain crashed through her and she curled tighter, small sound escaping her lips that made James's chest ache. Mrs. Whitmore's hands fluttered uselessly. "Should we move her? Do we know?" James said firmly. "We keep her still. We keep her calm." But Charlotte was anything but calm. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her small body trembled. "Am I going to die?" she asked in a voice so small it barely reached him. The question hung in the air like a weight. James had faced down armed intruders. He'd been trained for every physical threat imaginable. But nothing had prepared him for this. For a child's eyes, asking if she would live to see tomorrow, he took her hand gently. "No," he said with every ounce of conviction he could summon. "No, you're not. But we need to get you help. Can you be brave for me?" Charlotte nodded, but another spasm of pain cut through her and she cried out again. The sound echoed through the palace corridors. A princess's pain bouncing off walls that had witnessed centuries of royal history. But this moment wasn't history. It was happening right now. Every second that ticked by felt like an eternity. Footsteps pounded in the hallway. Multiple sets, fast and urgent. James looked up as Dr. Stevens burst through the door, medical bag in hand, followed by 2 nurses. But as the doctor knelt beside Charlotte and began his examination, James saw something that made his stomach drop. The doctor's face changed. Just for a second, a flash of concern that he tried to hide but couldn't quite manage. Something was very wrong. Asterisk, Dr. Stevens pressed gently on Charlotte's abdomen. Shh, she screamed. The sound pierced through every person in that room like broken glass. Guarding, the doctor muttered under his breath. His fingers moved carefully, methodically. But James saw the tension in his shoulders. Rebound tenderness. Elevated heart rate. The nurses moved with practiced efficiency. One placed an oxygen monitor on Charlotte's finger. The other prepared a blood pressure cuff. But their movements were too quick, too urgent. This wasn't routine. Charlotte, Dr. Stevens said softly, I need you to listen to me. We're going to take care of you. But we need to move you to the hospital. Right now. No, Charlotte gasped. I want my mom. Where's my mom? Mrs. Whitmore's voice shook. The Princess of Wales is at an engagement in Surrey. They're bringing her back now, but how long? James asked. 40 minutes, maybe less if traffic allows. Dr. Stevens's jaw tightened. He looked at James, and in that look, James understood everything. 40 minutes might be too long. Can't wait, the doctor said quietly. Then louder, to his team. Call ahead to St. Mary's. Tell them we're coming in with a possible ruptured appendix. Pediatric surgery needs to be ready. Ruptured. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Charlotte's eyes went even wider. What does that mean? What's happening to me? Dr. Stevens took her hand. His voice was gentle but honest. Your appendix is sick, Charlotte. It's a small part of your body that sometimes gets infected. We need to take it out before it causes more problems. But you're going to be okay. I promise you're going to be okay. But James heard what the doctor didn't say. If the appendix had already ruptured, infection could spread through her bloodstream, sepsis, organ failure. Even with modern medicine, a ruptured appendix in a child was dangerous. 2 more security officers appeared at the door. Behind them came Margaret, the palace's senior household staff member. Her face had gone white. The family's been notified, Margaret said breathlessly. Prince William is leaving the event now. The king has been informed. The king. Charlotte's grandfather. James couldn't imagine what was going through the royal family's minds right now. All the wealth, all the power, all the history behind these walls, and none of it could stop a 9-year-old girl from feeling like her body was tearing itself apart. We need to move her now, Dr. Stevens said, standing. Where's the stretcher? Coming, one of the nurses replied. Charlotte tried to sit up, and another wave of pain crashed through her. She vomited suddenly, violently. Mrs. Whitmore moved to help, but the doctor held up a hand. That's actually confirmation, he said grimly. Classic presentation. We need to move. Now. 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. They worked quickly, carefully lifting Charlotte onto it. She cried out again, her small hands gripping the sides. Every movement seemed to cause her agony. James stepped back, his role technically over. Security had arrived. Medical professionals were handling it. He should return to his post. Follow protocol. But Charlotte's eyes found his again. Those terrified, pain-filled eyes. Don't leave, she whispered. Please don't leave. Something in James's chest cracked. She wasn't a princess in that moment. She was just a scared little girl who'd grabbed onto him like a lifeline. He looked at Dr. Stevens. Can I ride with her? The doctor hesitated, then nodded. If it helps keep her calm? Yes. They moved quickly through the palace corridors. James walked beside the stretcher, Charlotte's hand still gripping his. Palace staff stopped and stared. Some gasped. Some covered their mouths. News traveled fast in these ancient halls. The ambulance waited outside, lights already flashing. The autumn air bit cold against James's face. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Beautiful, oblivious to the emergency unfolding below. They loaded Charlotte into the ambulance. James climbed in beside her. Dr. Stevens and 1 nurse came too. The door slammed shut. The siren wailed to life. Ambulance lurched forward. Inside, Dr. Stevens started an IV line. Charlotte whimpered, but didn't pull away. She was getting weaker. James could see it. Her grip on his hand had loosened. Her eyes were starting to glaze. "Stay with me, Charlotte," he said firmly. "Keep your eyes open. Keep talking to me." "Tired," she mumbled. "Want to sleep?" "No." James squeezed her hand. "Not yet. Tell me about school. What's your favorite subject?" Charlotte's eyes flickered. "Art," she whispered. "I like drawing horses." "What kind of horses?" "Big ones, strong ones." Her voice was fading. The nurse looked at Dr. Stevens with alarm. BP dropping. The doctor's face hardened. He worked faster. Second IV line. Medications James didn't recognize. The ambulance swayed as it took corners too fast. Sirens screaming into the London evening. "How much longer?" Dr. Stevens called to the driver. 8 minutes. "Make it 5. The ambulance accelerated. James gripped the side rail to steady himself. Charlotte's eyes were closing. "Charlotte, stay awake," James urged. "Your mom's on her way. Your dad's coming. They want to see you awake. Can you do that for them?" Her eyes opened slightly. "Mummy," she breathed. "Tell her I love her." "You'll tell her yourself," James said, but his voice cracked. "You hear me? You'll tell her yourself." Charlotte's eyes were closing again. The monitor beside her started beeping faster, then slower. Something was wrong. "She's crashing," the nurse said urgently. Dr. Stevens moved with swift precision, checking monitors, adjusting medications. His calm facade was cracking. James saw it. Saw the fear creeping in around the edges. "Come on, Charlotte," the doctor muttered. "Come on, stay with us." The ambulance screeched around a corner. Through the window, James could see the hospital ahead. So close. But Charlotte's hand in his had gone limp. The beeping changed. Became one long, steady tone. And everything exploded into chaos. The nurse shouted. Dr. Stevens's hands moved like lightning. He tilted Charlotte's head back, checking her airway. The nurse started chest compressions. Small, careful compressions on a child's fragile ribcage. James felt like he was drowning. The ambulance was still moving, swaying with each turn. Charlotte's small body jerked with each compression. Her face had gone gray. This couldn't be happening. Not to her. Not like this. "Continue compressions," Dr. Stevens commanded, his voice steel hard now. All emotion locked away. Pure medical focus. "Prepare epinephrine." The ambulance slammed to a stop. The back doors flew open. A trauma team waited. They'd been ready, watching. But the looks on their faces when they saw. CPR in progress told James everything. They hadn't expected this. 9-year-old female. Suspected ruptured appendix. Dr. Stevens rattled off as they pulled the stretcher out. Lost pulse 1 minute ago. Compressions ongoing. They ran. The stretcher rolled fast across the pavement. Through automatic doors. Into a hallway flooded with harsh fluorescent light. James ran behind them, his security training forgotten. He was just a man now. A man who'd promised a little girl she wouldn't die. Trauma too. Someone shouted. They burst into a room filled with equipment. More doctors appeared. More nurses. A whole team materializing like they'd been waiting in the wings. On my count, a new doctor said. A woman with gray hair and steady hands. 1, 2, 3. They moved Charlotte from the stretcher to the table. The nurse never stopped compressions. Not for a second. "Resume compressions," the gray-haired doctor ordered. She moved to Charlotte's head, preparing to intubate. "Someone get me her stats." Medical jargon James barely understood, but he understood the monitor. He understood the flat line that should have been showing peaks and valleys. A hand grabbed his arm. A security guard. "Sir, you need to step outside." "No," James said. His voice sounded far away. "I promised her." "Sir, I promised her." "Let him stay," the gray-haired doctor said, without looking up. She was threading a tube down Charlotte's throat now, but against the wall. "Don't interfere." James pressed himself against the cold tiles. He felt like he was watching through water. Everything moved too fast and too slow at the same time. The nurse kept compressing Charlotte's chest. 1 minute became 2. 2 became 3. Epinephrine, someone called out. They waited. Watch the monitor. Nothing. Continue compressions. Prepare second dose. A commotion erupted in the hallway outside. Voices, urgent, authoritative. Then the door burst open. Princess Catherine stood there, still in her formal engagement clothes. Her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. But her eyes were wild with terror. She saw Charlotte on the table, saw the team working, saw the CPR still going. Oh, she breathed. No, no, no. Prince William appeared behind her, his face sheeped white. His hand gripped the doorframe like he needed it to stay upright. A nurse moved to intercept them. Your Royal Highnesses, please let us. That's my daughter, Catherine's voice cracked. That's my baby. The gray-haired doctor glanced up. We're doing everything we can, but I need you to clear. Another doctor shouted. Everyone stepped back. The defibrillator charged with a high-pitched whine. They placed the paddles on Charlotte's small chest. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. The shock delivered. Charlotte's body jolted. Everyone's eyes locked on the monitor. Still nothing. Resume compressions, the gray-haired doctor said. But there was something in her voice now. Something that hadn't been there before. Doubt, again, William said from the doorway. His voice was raw. Shock her again, Your Royal Highness. We need to shock her again. William's voice broke. The future king, reduced to a desperate father. Please. The doctor nodded to her team. Charging, clear. Another shock. Another jolt. Catherine had started praying. Whispered words James couldn't quite hear. Her hands were clasped so tight her knuckles had gone white. The monitor beeped once, then twice, then found a rhythm. The nurse shouted. Sinus rhythm, weak but steady. The room seemed to exhale collectively. But the gray-haired doctor didn't celebrate. Her face remained focused, intense. She's not out of the woods yet, she said. Get her to surgery now. And someone call down, tell them we're coming hot. This is going to be complicated. The team moved like a choreographed dance, disconnecting monitors, reconnecting them to portable units. Preparing to move, Catherine rushed forward, but a nurse gently held her back. Your Royal Highness, let them work. You can see her for just a moment. Catherine approached the table. She touched Charlotte's forehead, bent down, and kissed her daughter's cheek. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. Fight, baby, she whispered. Please fight. Mummy's here. Daddy's here. We love you so much. William stood beside her, his hand on Charlotte's arm. He couldn't speak. Just stood there, jaw clenched, fighting to hold himself together. We need to move, the doctor said gently. Time matters. They started rolling Charlotte toward the door, toward the operating room, toward whatever came next. James watched them go. Watched Catherine and William follow, hands clasped together. Watched the doors swing shut behind them. He stood alone in the trauma room. Blood pressure cuffs hung loose. Packaging from medical supplies littered the floor. The monitors were dark now. His legs gave out. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the cold floor. He'd been trained for threats he could see. Enemies he could fight. But this invisible thing tearing apart a child from the inside, he was powerless against it. Charlotte's voice echoed in his mind. Am I going to die? He'd told her no. Promised her no. But for those terrible minutes, his promise had meant nothing. A doctor emerged from a side door. Not one of the trauma team. Someone else. A surgeon, by the look of his scrubs. Are you Officer Mitchell? The surgeon asked. James nodded, unable to find his voice. I'm Dr. Patel. I'll be leading Charlotte's surgery. He crouched down to James's level. I heard what you did. Staying with her, keeping her calm, that mattered. It bought us time. Is she going to make it? James asked. Dr. Patel's expression was grave. Her appendix ruptured. There's significant infection. The next few hours are critical. But she's young. She's strong. And we're going to do everything humanly possible. He stood, extended a hand to help James up. You should wait with the family. I think they'd want you there." James let himself be pulled to his feet. His body felt heavy. Foreign. He followed Dr. Patel down a corridor, through more doors, into a private waiting room where Catherine and William sat. Hands still clasped, faces frozen in fear. They looked up when James entered. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Catherine stood, crossed the room, and pulled James into an embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being there when I couldn't." James's professional composure finally shattered. "I should have seen it sooner. Should have you saved her life," William said quietly. "If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't called for help when you did." Couldn't finish. They sat, all three of them. Royalty and security guard, titles meaningless now. Just three people waiting to know if a little girl would live or die. The surgery, Dr. Patel had said, would take 2 to 3 hours. It was going to be the longest wait of their lives. The clock on the wall ticked too loud. Each second felt like an hour. Catherine sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the door. She looked like a statue, beautiful, composed. But James could see the slight tremor in her fingers, the way she kept swallowing. Fighting to hold herself together, William paced. Back and forth, back and forth. His phone kept buzzing. Messages from family, from staff, from the world outside these walls. He ignored them all. James sat in the corner, trying to be invisible. He didn't belong here, not in this private moment. But Catherine had asked him to stay, had gripped his hand and said, "Please." "You were with her. You heard her. I need someone who was with her." So he stayed. An older woman arrived, elegant, regal. James recognized her immediately. Princess Anne, Charlotte's Grattan. She entered quietly, went straight to Catherine and William, embraced them both without words. Then King Charles appeared in the doorway. His face was drawn, aged 10 years in an hour. He looked at his son with an expression James had never seen on a monarch's face before. Pure, helpless love mixed with terror. "Any news?" the king asked quietly. William shook his head. Still in surgery, Charles moved to Catherine, sat beside her, took her hand. "She's strong, Catherine, like her mother. She'll fight through this." Catherine finally spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "She asked for me. She wanted me, and I wasn't there." "You came as fast as you could," Anne said gently. "Not fast enough." Catherine's voice cracked. "I should have known. This morning, she said her stomach felt funny. I thought it was nerves about her piano recital. I told her she'd be fine." A tear slid down her cheek. What kind of mother doesn't know when her child is seriously ill? Catherine Williams started. "I should have known." She stood abruptly, crossing to the window. Her shoulders shook. "I'm her mother. I'm supposed to protect her. And I wasn't there when she needed me most." James felt like he was intruding on something too private, too raw. But he understood her pain. He'd heard Charlotte crying out for her mother. Seen the fear in those young eyes. "Your Royal Highness," James said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He immediately regretted speaking. But Catherine's eyes found his, desperate for something. "Anything," he continued. "Charlotte was asking for you. But when the pain got really bad, she got calm for a moment. She told me to tell you, she loves you." James's throat tightened. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared you'd left her. She just wanted you to know she loved you. Catherine's hand covered her mouth. Fresh tears spilled over. "She fought," James added. "Even when it hurt so much she could barely breathe, she kept fighting, because she knew you were coming." The door opened. Everyone jumped. But it wasn't Dr. Patel. It was a nurse. Young, nervous at suddenly having 5 sets of royal eyes on her. "I just wanted to update you," she said. "The surgery is progressing. Dr. Patel said it's complicated, but he's managing it. It'll be at least another hour. How bad is it?" William asked. "The rupture?" The nurse hesitated. "I'm not qualified to give details. Dr. Patel will explain everything when he's done, but He's one of the best pediatric surgeons in Europe. If anyone can handle this, it's him. It wasn't reassuring. It was terrifying, because it implied this was something that needed handling, something serious enough that being the best might still not be enough. The nurse left. Silence fell again. King Charles cleared his throat. I remember when William was 7. He got hit in the head with a golf club. Accidentally, of course. Had to have stitches. Diana was beside herself with worry, even though the doctors said it was minor. I told her she was overreacting. He paused, staring at his hands. But now I understand. When it's your child, your grandchild, there's no such thing as minor. Every moment they're in pain. Every second you can't protect them. It's agony. William stopped pacing. Looked at his father. Some unspoken understanding passed between them. George and Louis, Catherine said suddenly. Have they been told? William nodded. They know Charlotte's sick. They know she's in hospital. But not the details. They'll be frightened. Anne's arranged for them to stay with her tonight, William said. Zara's with them. They're okay. But Charlotte wasn't okay. That's what hung unspoken in the air. More time crawled past. An hour became 90 minutes. 90 minutes became 2 hours. A different doctor appeared. A woman in scrubs. She looked exhausted. I'm Dr. Chen, the anesthesiologist. I wanted to let you know Charlotte's vitals are stable. She's responding well to the anesthesia. Her heart rate and blood pressure are where we want them. In the surgery itself. William pressed. Dr. Chen chose her words carefully. Dr. Patel is doing what needs to be done. I can't speak to the surgical details, but from my end, she's holding up remarkably well. It was something. A small piece of good news in an ocean of uncertainty. After she left, Catherine finally sat down again. She looked at James. Tell me what she was like, Catherine said. Before it got so bad. What did you talk about? James thought back. To those frantic minutes that now felt like a different lifetime? She talked about art class, he said. Said she likes drawing horses. Big, strong horses. Catherine smiled through her tears. She's been obsessed with horses since she was 3. She has a collection of toy horses. Names every single one. She's brave, James said. Even when she was terrified, when she asked if she was going to die, she believed me when I told her no. She trusted me. Well, she's always been good at reading people, William said, even as a toddler. She could tell who was genuine and who wasn't. He looked at James. She saw something in you? Something that told her you'd keep her safe? James felt the weight of that trust like a physical thing. He'd kept her safe long enough to get her here. But now her safety was in other hands. Hands working inside her small body, fighting against infection and time. The door opened again. This time it was Dr. Patel. His scrubs were stained. His face was drawn, but his eyes. James couldn't read his eyes. Everyone stood. Catherine gripped William's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. King Charles moved closer, a grandfather bracing for news about his granddaughter. Dr. Patel took a breath. And in that moment, before he spoke, the entire world seemed to hold its breath with him. Asterisk, she made it through surgery, Dr. Patel said. Catherine's knees buckled. William caught her. Relief flooded the room like a wave, but Dr. Patel's face stopped it short. But, William asked. Because there was clearly a but, Dr. Patel gestured to the chairs. Please sit. This is complicated. They sat. James stayed standing in the corner, but no one told him to leave. Charlotte's appendix had ruptured, Dr. Patel began. The infection had spread significantly into her abdominal cavity. We've removed the appendix and irrigated the area extensively, but peritonitis has set in. That's inflammation of the abdominal wall. It's serious. How serious? William's voice was steady, but James could hear the fear beneath it. We're treating her with aggressive antibiotics. We've placed drains to help clear the infection. But the next 24 to 48 hours are critical. Dr. Patel looked directly at Catherine. Her body needs to fight off the infection, and she needs to do it while recovering from major surgery. But she can do that, Catherine said. She's strong. You said she made it through surgery? She is strong. Remarkably so. But I won't lie to you. Peritonitis in children can be unpredictable. Some recover beautifully. Others didn't finish. The unspoken words hung heavy. What are her chances? King Charles asked quietly. Dr. Patel hesitated. I don't like giving percentages. Every child is different. But if I had to, I'd say she has an 80% chance of full recovery. Maybe 8 to 5. But that 20% risk is real. It's there. 20%. 1 in 5. Russian roulette with a child's life. Can we see her? Catherine asked. She's in recovery now. Still under anesthesia? In about an hour, we'll move her to pediatric ICU. You can see her then, but she'll be sedated. We're keeping her comfortable while her body heals. Dr. Patel stood. I know this isn't the answer you wanted, but she's alive. She's fighting, and she's getting the best care possible. After he left, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, Anne broke the silence. She's a fighter. She gets that from both sides of the family. Catherine nodded mechanically, but her eyes were far away, calculating odds. Thinking about that 20%, James's radio crackled. His supervisor's voice. Mitchell, what's your status? He'd completely forgotten about his duties. About the palace? About everything except a little girl fighting for her life. I'm at St. Mary's, James said quietly. With the family? Understood. We'll cover your shift. Stay as long as they need you. As long as they need you. James realized he'd do exactly that. Something had shifted tonight. This wasn't just a job anymore. An hour passed. Then a nurse appeared. You can see her now, she said gently. But please, only immediate family first. She's stable, but she's very fragile. Catherine and William stood. Catherine turned to James. Will you come? Please. I think she'd want you there. Protocol said no. His position said no. Every rule in his training manual said no, but he nodded. If you want me there, I'll be there. They walked through hallways that smelled of antiseptic and hope. Into an elevator. Up 3 floors. Down another corridor lined with rooms filled with sick children. The pediatric ICU was quiet, hushed. Machines beeped softly. Nurses moved like ghosts between beds. Charlotte's room was at the end. Through the window, James could see her small form in the bed. Tubes and wires everywhere. Monitors surrounding her like sentries. They entered quietly. Charlotte looked so small, so fragile. Her skin was pale against the white sheets. A breathing tube had been removed, but an oxygen mask covered her nose and mouth. IVs ran from both arms. Bandages covered her abdomen. Catherine moved to the bedside. Touched Charlotte's hand carefully, mindful of the 4. Hello, my darling, she whispered. Mummy's here. Daddy's here. Charlotte didn't stir. Deep in medically induced sleep, William stood on the other side, his hand resting on Charlotte's ankle. The only part of her not covered in medical equipment. She's so still, Catherine said. She's never still. Even when she sleeps, she moves. The sedation, a nurse said gently from the doorway. We're keeping her comfortable. Less movement means less strain on the surgical site. When will she wake up? William asked. We'll start lightening the sedation tomorrow morning, if everything remains stable. But we'll keep her fairly sedated for at least the first day. Let her body heal without the trauma of being fully conscious. Catherine bent down, kissed Charlotte's forehead. You did so well, baby. So well. Now you just need to rest. Get strong. We'll be right here. We're not going anywhere. James stayed near the door, watching. This was their moment. Their private grief and hope and fear. But then Charlotte's hand moved. Just slightly. Her fingers twitched. Catherine froze. Did you see that? The nurse checked the monitors. Her sedation might be a bit light. That's normal. Sometimes they have moments of partial consciousness. Charlotte's eyes fluttered. Didn't open, but moved beneath her lids. And then, so quietly James almost missed it, She mumbled something. What did she say? William leaned closer. Charlotte's lips moved again. This time, James heard it clearly. Horses. Catherine laughed. A sound between joy and tears. Yes, darling. Horses. We'll draw all the horses you want when you wake up. But Charlotte wasn't done. Her hand moved again, fingers stretching as if reaching for something. Safe, she mumbled. The guard said, safe. James's throat closed. She remembered. Even in her drug-induced sleep, fighting infection, recovering from surgery, she remembered his promise. Catherine looked back at James. Tears streamed freely down her face now. She knew, Catherine said. She knew you'd keep her safe. James couldn't respond. Couldn't trust his voice. They stayed for another hour, just watching her breathe. Watching the monitors, finding hope in every steady heartbeat. Finally, a doctor suggested they get some rest. A room had been prepared nearby. They'd be called immediately if anything changed. Catherine didn't want to leave. William had to gently guide her out. As they walked back down the corridor, Catherine stopped. Turned to James. You should go home. Get rest. You've been here for hours. Respect, Your Royal Highness, James said. I'm staying. At least for tonight. Catherine studied his face, then nodded. Thank you. They parted ways. The royal couple to their private room. James to a hard plastic chair in the waiting area outside the ICU. He sat. Alone now? The hospital quiet around him. His phone buzzed. A text from his brother, the surgeon. Heard about the princess? How's she doing? James typed back, surgery went well. But it's complicated. Infection. Next 48 hours. Critical. His brother's response came quickly. I've seen kids bounce back from worse. Kids are resilient. Have faith. Faith. James wasn't sure he had any left. He'd used it all up, making promises to a terrified 9-year-old. But Charlotte had fought. Was still fighting. So he would too. He settled into the uncomfortable chair, knowing he wouldn't sleep. Knowing he'd stay alert, ready, in case he was needed. Because Charlotte had trusted him, and he wouldn't break that trust. Not now, not ever. Asterisk. Dawn broke gray and cold outside the hospital windows. James had dozed in fits. Every time a nurse walked past, every time a monitor beeped differently, he jerked awake. His body ached from the plastic chair, but he didn't move. Around 6 in the morning, William appeared. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. His shirt was wrinkled. His hair uncombed. He looked nothing like a future king, and everything like a terrified father. Catherine's with Charlotte now, William said, sitting down beside James. They're starting to lighten her sedation. Seeing how she responds. They sat in silence for a moment. Two men from completely different worlds, bound together by concern for one little girl. When Charlotte was born, William said quietly, I held her and thought about all the things I needed to teach her. How to be strong. How to be royal. How to handle the pressure. He laughed bitterly. Never occurred to me that the most important thing I'd need to teach her was how to be brave when her own body was failing her. She already knew, James said. She didn't learn that yesterday. That was already in her. William looked at him. Thank you. For yesterday. For staying. For, his voice caught. For being there when I couldn't. Anyone would have. No, William interrupted. Not everyone would have run toward a child screaming in pain. Not everyone would have held her hand in the ambulance. Not everyone would have spent the night in a hospital waiting room for a child who isn't theirs. He paused. You're a good man, Officer Mitchell. Before James could respond, a nurse appeared. Your Royal Highness, you should come. She's waking up. They moved quickly. Back through the corridors. Into Charlotte's room, Catherine stood by the bed, gripping the rail. Charlotte's eyes were open, confused, unfocused, but open. Charlotte's voice was weak, scratchy from the breathing tube. I'm here, darling. I'm right here. Catherine smoothed Charlotte's hair back. You're in the hospital. You had surgery, but you're okay. You're going to be okay. Charlotte's eyes roamed the room, found the monitors,
The IVS.
then found James standing near the door. You stayed, she whispered. James stepped closer. I promised you you'd be safe. Had to make sure I kept that promise. Small smile touched Charlotte's lips. I remember. In the ambulance. You told me about horses? You've told me about horses, James corrected gently. About how you like drawing them. I'm really tired, Charlotte said. That's normal, Dr. Patel said, entering the room with 2 other doctors. Your body is healing. You need lots of rest. He checked her monitors, her drains, asked her a few questions. Where did it hurt? Could she wiggle her toes? Could she take a deep breath? She answered everything, weak but present. Fighting. This is very good, Dr. Patel said, smiling at Catherine and William. Better than I expected at this stage. She's responding well to the antibiotics. Her fever is down. If she continues like this, he didn't finish, but the hope in his voice was clear. Over the next 12 hours, Charlotte improved steadily. She stayed awake for longer periods, complained about the tubes, asked for water, then ice chips, then carefully rationed sips of ginger ale. George and Louis were brought to visit. They stood at the doorway, frightened by all the equipment, but Charlotte waved at them weakly. I'm okay, she told her brothers. Just have to rest. George, 11, and trying to be brave, nodded, but his eyes were wet. Louis, only 7, started crying. I thought you were going to die. Don't be silly, Charlotte said, though her voice was still weak. I'm too stubborn to die. Mom says so all the time. Catherine laughed through tears. Because Charlotte was stubborn. Wonderfully, frustratingly stubborn. James watched from the corner, watched the family reunite, watched Charlotte grow stronger hour by hour. That evening, Dr. Patel gave the official word. The infection is responding to treatment. Her vital signs are excellent. Barring any unexpected complications, she's going to make a full recovery. The relief in the room was palpable. Catherine cried. William cried. Even King Charles, who'd returned that afternoon, wiped his eyes quickly. Charlotte looked confused. Why's everyone crying? I'm fine. We're crying because we're happy, darling, Catherine said. Very, very happy. 3 days later, Charlotte was moved out of ICU to a regular pediatric room. She still had drains and IVs, but she was sitting up, complaining about the hospital food, drawing on a sketch pad Anne had brought her. Horses, of course. Big, strong horses James visited every day. He'd been given leave from his regular duties. His supervisor had simply said, the family requested you stay close. So stay close. On the 4th day, Charlotte was walking short distances with help. On the 5th day, she ate real food. On the 6th day, she was demanding to go home. Soon, Dr. Patel promised. Very soon. On the 7th day, James arrived to find Charlotte's room filled with flowers, cards, and stuffed animals. Thousands of well wishes from around the world. It's mad, Catherine said, gesturing at the overflow. People we've never met, sending love to a child they don't know. They know her, James said. Maybe not personally, but they know what it's like to be scared for a child. That's universal. Charlotte was sitting in a chair by the window, looking stronger, almost like herself again. Officer Mitchell, she said formally, then giggled. That sounds so serious. Can I call you James? Charlotte, Catherine said gently. That's not, of course you can, James interrupted. James is fine, James, Charlotte said, trying it out. I wanted to ask you something. Anything. When I was really scared in the palace, you told me I needed to be brave. But I didn't feel brave. One felt terrified. James crouched down to her level. Can I tell you a secret? Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. You were terrified, but you held on. You fought. That's what bravery really looks like. Charlotte considered this. Then I guess I was brave. The bravest, James confirmed. She smiled. Then, unexpectedly, hugged him. A quick, tight hug from a 9-year-old who'd been through hell and come out the other side. "Thank you for staying with me," she whispered. "I wasn't alone because you stayed." James felt his eyes burn. "You'll never be alone, Charlotte. You've got more people who love you than you could possibly count." 2 days later, Charlotte was discharged. The media went into a frenzy, but the palace kept details private. Just a brief statement: Princess Charlotte had undergone emergency surgery for appendicitis. She was recovering well and would return to normal activities soon. James returned to his regular duties. Back to the East Wing, back to patrols and protocols, and the quiet routine of palace life. But something had changed. Everyone looked at him differently, treated him differently. He was the guard who'd stayed with the princess, who'd held her hand through the worst night of her young life, a week after Charlotte's discharge. James was called to a private meeting. He expected his supervisor. Instead, he found Prince William waiting. "Officer Mitchell," William said. James, if I may." "Of course, sir. Wanted to thank you properly." "For what you did." "For Charlotte." William paused. "She's asked about you several times. Wants to know if you'll still be there when we return to the palace." "I'll be here," James said. Good. William handed him an envelope. "This is from Charlotte. She insisted I deliver it personally." James opened it carefully. Inside was a drawing. Horse. Big and strong, just like she'd described. And standing next to it, a figure in a uniform. Underneath, in careful child's handwriting, "Thank you for keeping me safe. Love, Charlotte." James's throat tightened. "Please tell her I'll treasure this." "Tell her yourself," William said. "She'll be back next week. And I suspect she'll want to see her favorite guard." 1 month later, life had returned to a new normal. Charlotte was back to her lessons, her writing, her art. A small scar on her abdomen was the only physical reminder of that terrible night. But the emotional reminders ran deeper. Catherine had thanked James a dozen times. King Charles had personally commended him. The palace had offered him a promotion, which he'd politely declined. He liked where he was. Liked the East Wing. Liked being where Charlotte might need him. One afternoon, James was at his post when Charlotte walked past with her nanny. She stopped, grinned at him. "Hello, James," she said cheerfully. "Hello, Princess Charlotte. How are you feeling?" "Good. Really good." She glanced at Mrs. Whitmore, who nodded permission. Charlotte stepped closer. "I wanted you to know something." "What's that?" "I'm not scared anymore. Of getting sick again. Of things going wrong." She smiled. "Because I know that even when things are really bad, there are people who'll stay. People who'll keep their promises." She turned to leave, then looked back. "That's what brave people do, right? They keep their promises." "That's exactly what brave people do," James agreed. Charlotte nodded, satisfied, and continued down the hall. Just a normal 9-year-old princess walking through her home, thinking about art class and horses and whatever else occupied young royal minds. But James knew the truth. She wasn't just a princess. She was one of the bravest people he'd ever met. A little girl who'd looked death in the face and come out stronger, and he'd been there. Had witnessed her strength. Had held her hand through the darkness. Some people spent their whole lives looking for meaning. For a moment that mattered. James had found his inner child's cry for help. And his choice to answer it, that was enough. That was everything.